Who remembers how to just set up a basic Tkinter program? What's the first thing that I need? Yell it out when you know it or put it in the chat. Really?
Don't you have to import it?
There we go. Yes. From Tkinter, import star. Okay. All right. What's next after that? I want to just create a window.
Window equals TK.
Window equals TK with a capital T and a lowercase k and parentheses. Yes. Okay. And then what's the last thing?
Window dot main loop.
Window dot main loop. There we go. That is it. It is literally that simple. Okay. So I'm going to save that. I am going to run this. Okay. And yay, look, it popped up a window. There's nothing in the window. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and add some stuff. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and add a label. Does anybody remember how to do that? Don't everybody answer at once. It's difficult to hear who's trying to answer the question because so many of you guys are talking at the same time. Come on, who knows how to make a label? Okay, there we go. L1 equals label. Okay, and then we're going to pass in the attribute text equals, and then what we want the text of the label to be. Okay, so, okay. So to be something like, this is my label, whatever you want it to say. Okay. All right. And then how do we actually get the label to show up in the window?
L1.pack.
L1.pack, precisely. Okay, so now we got a label. All right, now let's make an entry. Remember, an entry is just one of those text edit fields that allows the user to type in. Okay, so we'll do E1 equals entry. Okay, what do we need to pass into this? Entries are easy. We don't need actually
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. We can just leave it blank. Okay, and then E1.pack. Okay. And then finally, let's go ahead and do a button. So we'll do B1 equals button. All right. What do we need to pass to button? Okay. Text equals click me. All right. And B1.pack. All right. So let's go ahead and save this and then see what it looks like. All right, so you see that we have here a label. This is my label. We have here an edit field that I can type stuff into. And underneath it, we have here a button that I can click. Okay, and right now the button doesn't do anything. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to show you how you can, well, let's see. I guess first thing is, let's go ahead and show you how you can change the size of the button, okay? And this probably works for many other widgets too, okay? So I'm going to do another argument here for height equals, okay? And now this next thing, the value for height isn't necessarily pixels, okay? Because this is like operating system dependent and monitor dependent and a bunch of other stuff. So you kind of have to play around with the numbers to get it to a height that you want. So I'm going to start with height equals, I'll just do height equals 5. Okay, and I'm going to do width equals 5. Okay, and that's just for my button. Okay, so if I save that and run it, okay, you'll see that now, see how my button is like this weird, it like cut off the text a little bit. Okay, so it looks like 5.5 wasn't necessarily a great choice. All right, and you'll notice that even though I said that the height and width are the same, they're actually not quite exactly right. Okay, so this height and width is kind of like a guideline. Okay, you're not going to get very precise on it. But let me go ahead and change this to 1010 and see what it looks like. Okay. These heights and widths are kind of like the pirates code. They're sort of like guidelines. They're not really. Okay, so I changed it to 1010, and now when I run it, see how the button's a lot larger. Okay, it's still not perfectly square, but it's quite a bit bigger. Okay, so at any rate, you can play around with that to get a size of a button that you like. Okay. All right, so that's that, okay? Now, I am going to show you how to, a different way to actually bind a function to a button, okay? So in the last lecture, we did something like this, where we did command equals, and then we had like a function like that, okay? What we're going to do instead is we're going to leave this button alone, and we're going to call the bind method. So we're going to say b1.bind, okay? And the first argument is the thing, which it's either a mouse click or a key press, or there's lots of different things that you can bind. But in this case, because it's a button, we're going to bind a clicking of the button. Okay, so we're going to say button -1, okay? And what that means is that when somebody clicks their left mouse button, then whatever function that I add in next, that's what's going to execute, okay? So you can actually put in, you can bind multiple things to the button. I can say if I click on the right, if I click on the left mouse button, do one thing. If I click on the right mouse button, do something else, okay? Okay, and so then what you do is you just put in, you know, func, whatever the name of your function is. I'll call it my function, okay? And again, you don't need to put in parentheses or anything like that. Just my function like this without the parentheses, okay? All right, so now we need to actually create my function, and this is where it gets a little bit weird, so pay attention, okay? So for my function, we're going to put it up here, okay? Def my function, okay? And this is going to accept one argument that is an event, okay? So I'm just going to call it EVT, all right? And so, again, this is all kind of magic Python stuff that's happening under the covers, but basically what's happening is when you create a function that you're binding to a widget using Tkinter, okay, then Tkinter is going to say, I am expecting this function to actually have as an argument implicitly some sort of event. And the event is going to be whatever event it was that triggered this function, okay? So you can, there are lots of different events in Tkinter that you can capture. You can capture the mouse moving, you can capture a key press, and you can actually capture the key being pressed down and then key up, which is you releasing the key. You can do mouse up, mouse down. There's all kinds of events that you can capture, okay? But so event will tell us the specific event that was caught, okay? And so then what we can do is we can actually call methods on this event object to get information about what it was that triggered this, okay? So I'm going to show you a couple of things here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to just print to the console evt.widget, okay? All right, and what evt.widget is going to do is that's going to show me the actual widget that that was clicked on in this case, you know, that triggered this event, okay? All right, so I'm going to save this, all right? And if I run it, all right, you'll see that when I click the button, okay, it prints out weird, not very helpful dot exclamation mark button, okay? So that's not really super helpful, okay? So then the question is, all right, well, let me print out something more about the button, okay? So instead of just doing evt.widget, okay, I want to print out what the text of that particular widget is, okay? So in this case, I'm going to say, all right, I want to actually get the text of this particular widget. So because this button has a text value of click me, this should print out click me exclamation mark when I execute this code. Okay. And sure enough, when I click on the button, see how it says click me? Okay. So the reason why I'm showing you this is because in your assignment, okay, you're going to want to be able to, when you click a button, you want to see the text that's already on the button, and you want to check to see, is the text blank? If so, then I need to change it to either an X or an O, okay? So that's why I'm showing you this. So instead of just printing this, okay, how about we change it to something, okay? What code could I put in here to change the text of the button from click me to you are a goose? What code would I write here to do that? Any guesses? Nobody wants to take a stab at it?
Would you do like something and then in brackets, like the text in brackets?
Okay.
And
All right. Yeah, go ahead. Continue that thought.
so it would be like B1 and then in like the brackets, and then you would put the text.
Like you are a goose, like this.
No, like put text in the brackets.
Like this.
Yeah, and then put equals whatever you want it to change to.
You are a goose.
But I'm assuming it's gonna have to be some type of event, right?
Okay. Let's see. Okay. This is interesting because B1 is like kind of a global thing. So, let's try that and see. Okay. It's an excellent guess, by the way. And it turns out that the guess is correct. Okay. See how it did that? It just changed the text of the button right there to you are a goose. Okay. So everybody make a note of that. All right. That's how you change the text of a button. Because guess what? In the homework assignment, that's what you have to do. You have to change the text of the button to either an X or an O. Okay. If it's blank. Okay. So there's going to be a check in there. All right. This is how you get it. EVT.widget text. All right. That'll tell you what the current text is. If it's blank, then you want to set it to either an X or an O. How do you know whether to set it to an X or an O? Well, based on the value of the player1 turn variable. Okay. So if it is blank, it'll just return an empty string. Correct. Okay. Not a string with a space, but an empty string. Okay. All right. So let's see. So that's that. All right. Now the other thing that I want to show you is we've done a lot of stuff with this packing, and you notice that when you do pack, it just takes each widget and stacks it progressively on top of on top of the next one. Okay. And so maybe we want, again, I don't want to necessarily go crazy on the layout manager kind of stuff because that can get pretty complicated pretty quickly. But I want to show you one additional layout manager and one in particular that will be very useful for this assignment. Okay. So suppose that instead of laying them out like this, okay, we wanted to label them out all next to each other. So side by side. Okay. You can basically use something called the grid layout manager. All right. And here's how it works. So instead of the L1.pack, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete the E1.pack, and I'm going to delete the B1.pack. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to say L1.grid, okay? And then I'm going to say row equals, in this case, 0, column equals 0, okay? So if you think of the grid, okay, 0, 0 is going to be in the top left-hand corner, and that's going to be just like where that label goes. So it'll go in the top left-hand corner. Okay. If I wanted to put something right next to that label, okay, what do you think I should put in? So like if I did E1.grid, what do you think I should put in? Okay. So somebody's saying 0, 1, and that's absolutely correct. So I'm going to do row equals 0, column equals 1. Okay. And now what if I want, instead of the button to be right next to the edit control, what if I want the button to be like underneath? Okay, what could I do for the button? B1.grid. I spelled grid wrong up here. I put GERD.
Would it be 1, 1, like row 1, column 1?
Okay. Yeah, we could try 1, 1, or it could be even 1, 0. Okay, we'll try 1, 1 first, and we'll see how it looks. Okay, all right. So let's just do that for now. All right, and then if we run this, Okay, we see, oh, okay, so we got, so this is, this is looks okay. So we have the label here, all right. Then we have the edit field right here, and then we have the button. It looks like it's all kind of centered, okay? We have the button right underneath that, okay? So maybe it would look a little bit nicer if we move the button over, okay? So let's do that. So instead, I think what we'll do, this button is a weird size too. So let's get rid of this height width stuff because that's just kind of obnoxious looking. So let's take that away. Okay. And instead of putting it at 1, 1, let's put it at 1, 0. Okay. And so now we'll see that if we kill the existing one. Okay. Then you see, okay, that's, this is kind of actually sort of looking like a reasonable interface now, right? So we have a label, and then we have an edit field, and then we have a button underneath it over here, okay? That doesn't look too bad. Okay, so, oops, hold on. I just unplugged my computer accidentally. Okay. All right, so, all right. So now you can see that for the tic-tac-toe game, okay, you're going to have 9 buttons, and they're going to be laid out in a nice grid pattern, okay? You also have a label, okay? So let's actually go ahead and look at something here, all right? So if I was to go ahead and create 9 buttons and put them in a grid, okay? I'm going to just, well, maybe instead of doing 9, I'll just do 3 because I'm lazy. So let me do it like this. Copy these. Okay, so we'll have B2, 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 B2. Okay, so I'm going to turn off this stuff so that I just have buttons. Okay, and I'm going to make this one 0, 0, this one 0, 1, and this one 0, 2. Okay, and then you can imagine I'd have 3 more, or I'd have 3 more underneath it and then 3 more underneath that. Okay, and then if I want to stick the label on there somewhere, okay, grab these. Okay, I could put the label down at the bottom and put this at row 4, 0. Okay. So in other words, I'd have, or sorry, yeah, so I'd have, instead of 4, I guess I'd probably want it at 3. Okay, so I'd have 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, and then underneath that I would have the label. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. Okay, and so yeah, so you see, here's kind of how it looks. All right, we have a button, a button, a button. Okay, this is my label. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to show you one more thing. I'm basically giving away all of the secrets of the homework. I probably shouldn't do this, okay? You'll notice that the way that we have the program right now, okay, if I click on this first button, okay, the text changes to "you are a goose." But if I click on the second button, it doesn't seem like it does anything, okay? It's printing "click me" down here on the terminal. Okay, you see that, but it's not changing the label, okay? And so if we look back at this code, why do you think when I click on the first button, the label changes, but when I click on these other 2 buttons, the label doesn't change? Does anybody want to guess?
Because there's only like the B1 change text up there.
Yeah, there's only B1, okay? So what could I put in place of B1 so that I can use this same function for all of my buttons? What could I replace this B1 with so that it would click on whichever button happened to be clicked?
Button.
Okay, you want to just do button? Okay, well, the problem with button is that there isn't anything defined called button. If I used a capital B, that doesn't really make sense because button is a class type and it's, yeah, so that's not going to work. Okay. I'll give you a hint. In the line right above where my cursor is, that gives you an idea of what you want to do. Anyone want to guess?
Event.button.
Okay, close. All right, it's just going to be evt.widget. Okay, so remember, evt.widget text gets you the text of whatever widget triggered this function. Okay, so it could be the first button that triggered this function, it could be the second button, or it could be the third one. Whichever one I click on, so let's say that I clicked on B2, okay, then evt.widget is going to be B2. And then so basically this is saying I'm going to take B2's text and I'm going to change it to "you are a goose." Okay, you see that? So if I save this, all right, then you will see that if I click on, let's say I start with the middle one, see how it changed to "you are a goose"? The last one, "you are a goose." The first one, "you are a goose." Okay, now they're already "you are a goose." So, okay, so man, I don't know. If that doesn't give away a good chunk of the homework, I don't really know what does. Okay, that should that should make doing the homework really, really easy. Okay, so all right. So now the last thing that I want to show you is right now we have all this crap all over the screen here, but we haven't put it in its own class. Okay, and so my question to you is, how can I take this same code, this same functionality that I've written right here, and put it into its own class? How do I use all the principles that I've learned throughout the semester so that I don't just have a big bunch of top-down spaghetti garbage code here? I have a nice clean class. Okay, how do you think I might do that? Any ideas? Come on. Okay, well, if nobody answers the question, then I'm not going to answer the question either. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to make you figure it out for your homework.
So I'm assuming that my function stuff would be part of the class, right? Like it
Yep,
would be in the class.
all this stuff needs to basically be in the class. Okay, so here's what I would suggest that you do. Okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. I would say class my game. All right, so same as always. Okay, we're going to make a constructor. Same as always. Okay. Now in the constructor, this is where I can set up my stuff, okay? So here is where I can do my window.tk, okay? But remember, in our constructor, we're always doing self kind of things, right? So I'm gonna do self.window equals tk. And then down here, I can take all this stuff. Okay, I'm gonna put it right there. Now I have to indent all this crap. Hold on. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, not quite enough. There we go. Okay. All right, so I'll do self.b1 equals that. Self, 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 self. Okay. So because I'm calling main loop in here, as soon as I create an instance of my game, it's going to just create all this stuff and then immediately pop up the window. So I'm not going to have to do anything else. Okay. Now I'm making this call to my function. So let's put the my function in the class. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this in here. Okay. And because it's now a class thing, I need to put self in here like this. Okay. And then I need to change this to self.myFunction, self.myFunction. Okay, like that. Okay, and that rest looks okay. And yeah, so now I'm basically done. Okay, and so now, what's the last step? Now that I have this nice My Game class, in order to actually get this to run, what do I need to put right here where my cursor is? This is the easiest question of the whole time. An instance of the class, yes. So what would that be? How do I do it? What do I type? Yeah, there we go. Something My Game. Okay, so G equals My Game. There we go. That's it. Okay, so let's test it and make sure that we did everything correctly. Okay, and look, everything popped up the way that we thought it would. We click on stuff, things happen, labels change, stuff appears down here. Okay, my label's even there. All right, everything's good to go. Okay, so I believe that armed with this knowledge, you should be able to make substantial progress on the homework because I basically did the whole thing for you. Now, the only thing that I didn't do for you is I didn't put in all of the checking for, if it's this person's turn, then do this. I didn't show you how to do the solver. I explained the solver, but this is what I want you to spend your time working on, is writing the actual code to do the solving and to figure out whose turn it is and to figure out what to set the label to. That's kind of the essence of programming and the essence of this assignment. Okay. All right. So that is actually all I wanted to cover today. Does anybody have any questions about either the lab or the homework? Because if not, we're going to get out about 17 minutes early.
So for the class, like you'll just keep adding stuff. Like the more buttons you put, you would just keep putting self dot like button 4 or 5 and stuff.
Yeah, here, I'll put in one more button. Okay. So now this would probably be a lot easier if I used a series of loops, okay, instead of just adding in 9 things like this. Okay. And in fact, I would recommend that you use loops, because the other nice thing about the loops is that then with this grid, you can just use the loop indices to determine the row and column. Okay. So you use a 4i in, range 3 and a 4j in range 3. That would be the way I would do it. Okay. So now we have a button 3. Let's make this one say something different. Blah. Okay, and we'll put this in row 1, column 1. Okay. Okay, so if I run it again, all right, now you see that I have another button there in the middle, but it's bound to the same function, so it also gives me the you are a goose. Okay. Yeah, so yes, to answer your question, you do all that work here in the constructor. Okay. All right. I mean, the other thing that you could do if you want your program to look a little bit nicer is you could have like a separate private method called, def setup GUI. And then in your GUI is where you would do all that kind of stuff and then just make a call to it here. But it's not necessary. That's, if you want to do that, you can. You don't have to. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Comments? Concerns? Okay, well, since there are no other questions, comments, or concerns, I am going to say we are done for this evening. Make sure you get to work on this. Like I say, this homework assignment is a little bit trickier than it seems. It's not that tricky, but it's a little bit tricky. So you want to spend a little bit of time working on it. Don't put it off until the last minute, okay? All right, thank you all very much for attending, and I will see you on Tuesday.